Good day everyone, good day Teacher Valero. In this PowerPoint presentation, I am going to tackle about Rene Descartes, one of the modern day philosophers. Rene Descartes was not just a philosopher, he was a scientist and has a big contribution to mathematics. He was born on March 31, 1596 in La Haye, now called Descartes because of his contributions to Rene, France. He died on February 11, 1650 in Stockholm, Sweden because of pneumonia. It is because he was invited to the court of Queen Christina of Sweden in Stockholm to give the queen instruction in philosophy. The rigors of the northern winter brought on a pneumonia that caused his death. His parents were Joachim Descartes, lived 1563 to 1640, and Jean Brouchard, lived 1566 to 1597. He was the youngest of the siblings, namely Jean, born on 1590, and Pierre, born on 1591. He was named after his godfather Rene Brouchard, one of his mother's brother. His mother died in childbirth a year after he was born, and the boy born at the time of his mother's death also died. His father remarried in 1600 to Anne Morin, and they had a boy named Joachim, born on 1602, and a girl named Anne, born on 1611. He did not return to live with his father and stepmother, however continued living with his grandmother at La Haye. Throughout his childhood up to his 20s, he was pale and had a persistent cough, which was probably due to tuberculosis that seems likely that he inherited from his mother. Moving on in his education, Descartes was educated at the Jesuit College of La Flegue in Angers. He entered college at the Esther 1607 at the age of 11 years, where he became a boarder. He studied there, taking courses in classics, logic, and traditional Aristotelian philosophy. He also learned mathematics from the books of Clavius, while studying all the branches of mathematics, namely arithmetic, geometry, astronomy, and music. His health was poor while in school, and instead of rising at 5 a.m. like the other boys, he was granted permission to remain in bed until 11 o'clock in the morning, a custom he maintained until the year of his death. In his final years at the school, he studied natural philosophy, metaphysics, and ethics. He left the La Flegue College in 1614. School had made Descartes understand how little he knew. The only subject which was satisfactory in his eyes was mathematics. This idea became the foundation for his way of thinking and was to form the basis for all his works. So how does Descartes see the self? So for Descartes, the concept of the self revolves around the idea of mind-body dualism. For him, a human person is composed of two parts, namely a material body and a non-material mind. To explain, dualism is the concept that reality or existence is divided into two parts. When discussing dualism in the context of humanity, this division is between the mind and the physical body. In other words, the mind is separate from the empirically studied physical attributes of the body. To state it differently, dualism tells us that the mind is part of the unseen world. For Descartes, the mind or the soul is superior to the body, for it is in the mind that mental states occur. This is because for Descartes, the mental states such as thinking, imagining, and analyzing rather than the physical states of the body such as pain, hunger, and thirst are fundamental to our life as persons. In other words, for Descartes, it is the mind that makes us humans. Thus, for Descartes, the mind is the real self. In today's society, Rene Descartes would be recognized as a rationalist. He believed that his thought and reasoning should be based on reasoning and logic. He tried to use this reasoning to break down the complexities of life into the simplest forms. In his work of the Meditation of First Philosophy, he breaks down his philosophical method into 6 parts. In his first meditation entitled The Existence of All Things, Descartes starts by doubting everything he believes, including the existence of the external world and his own senses. He uses the idea of a deceiving demon to illustrate how even the most basic beliefs could be false. For example, imagine you're dreaming. In your dream, you might see a table, feel its surface, and even smell its wood. But when you wake up, you realize it was all an illusion. Descartes suggests that our waking life could be similar to a dream, and we might be constantly deceived. In a second meditation entitled Absolute Certainty, Descartes seeks a foundation of absolute certainty. He concludes that the only thing he can be absolutely sure of his own existence expressed in the famous phrase, I think, therefore I am, or cogito ergo sum. For example, even if you doubt everything else, you can doubt that you are thinking. The very act of doubting proves that you exist. In his meditation 3, The Existence of God, Descartes argues that the idea of God as a perfect being must have come from God himself. He reasons that our minds are limited and couldn't have created such a perfect concept. For example, imagine a sculptor creating a beautiful statue. The sculptor's mind is limited, but the statue itself is a perfect representation of beauty. Descartes argues that our mind, being imperfect, could not have created the idea of God, who is perfect. Therefore, the idea of God must have come from God himself. In his meditation 4, entitled Possibility of Errors, Descartes explores why we make mistakes. He concludes that errors arise from our judgments about things that we don't fully understand. We would make mistakes when we try to apply our limited human understanding to concepts beyond our grasp. For example, imagine trying to solve a complex mathematical equation. If you don't understand the underlying principle, you're likely to make mistakes. Similarly, if we try to judge things beyond our understanding, we are prone to errors. In his meditation 5, entitled The Ontological Argument, Descartes presents the ontological argument for the existence of God. He argues that the very idea of God as a perfect being implies that God must exist. If God didn't exist, then he wouldn't be perfect. For example, think of a perfect triangle. The very definition of a perfect triangle includes the idea of free sides and free angles. You can't imagine a perfect triangle without those elements. Similarly, Descartes argued that the very concept of God includes the idea of existence. Therefore, God must exist. In his last meditation entitled The Distinction of Mind and Body, Descartes concludes that the mind or soul is distinct from the body. He argues that the mind is a thinking substance, while the body is a physical substance. They are two separate things that interact. For example, imagine you are reading a book. Your mind is processing the words, understanding the story, and forming thoughts. Meanwhile, your body is physically holding the book, turning the pages, and experiencing the sensations of reading. Descartes argues that these mental and physical experiences are distinct, yet they are connected. In conclusion, Rene Descartes is a pivotal figure in the history of modern philosophy, revolutionized Western thought with his radical approach to knowledge and existence. His groundbreaking work, Meditations and First Philosophy, challenged traditional assumptions and established a new foundation for philosophical inquiry. Descartes' famous dictum, cogito ergo sum, or I think therefore I am, embodies his emphasis on individual reasons and the pursuit of certainty. Rene Descartes' legacy is one of the intellectual innovations and enduring influence. His ideas continue to shape our understanding of the world and our place within it, making him a cornerstone of modern thought. And that would be all for my PowerPoint presentation report. Thank you for listening.